Hi everyone, and welcome to Module 1 of the course Digital Marketing and Content Management. Module 1 is going to be all about digital marketing and current trends. In today's agenda, we are going to be covering 9 different elements. First, we're going to start by looking at the definition of digital marketing. Then, we are going to explore why digital marketing. In other words, we're going to understand why digital marketing is relevant today. After that, we will take a look at today's digital marketing landscape, and once we have done so, we will dive into the second topic of this module, which is going to be all about trends. We will start by looking at what is a trend, then why are trends important, and we will also recognize some of the major shifts that have occurred in digital marketing, as well as to have a look at the platforms that are relevant to digital marketing. Towards the end, we will explore different digital marketing trends for 2025 according to various sources. And we will conclude this module by looking into the different ways in which trends are currently being leveraged. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's module. So what is digital marketing? And actually, if you look for this definition online, you will find different definitions. I will use the one from HubSpot given in 2024 that says that digital marketing refers to all marketing efforts that occur on the internet. In other words, what this is saying is that digital marketing involves all marketing activities that companies make in the digital space. Then, when we look at HubSpot's definition of marketing, marketing is said to refer to any actions a company takes to attract an audience to the company's product or service. In other words, marketing encompasses all activities which goal is to attract clients to a company's product or service. As we can see, the main difference between marketing and digital marketing is that while marketing encompasses all online and offline activities, digital marketing focuses on the activities that occur in the digital space. Now, digital marketing has evolved extremely rapidly in the past years, and today it is impossible to talk or define digital marketing without mentioning the role of AI. Since 2023, AI and automation have become core to digital marketing. During this course, we will have the opportunity to understand better the impact that AI has had in digital marketing, as well as to identify key ways in which we can leverage AI for our marketing needs. But now, we may ask ourselves the question of, why digital marketing? Why is this relevant? Why should I pay attention to digital marketing? Maybe for some of you the answer is obvious, but maybe for some of you the answer is not. So let's dive into some of the reasons of why digital marketing. And let's start by saying that digital is part of our world and our everyday lives. According to Data Reportal in 2025, there are 5.56 billion internet users worldwide. And basically, this accounts for around 67.9% of the world's population. This is a number that has increased continuously, and it continues to increase since last year. When we ask ourselves again, well, why digital marketing? We can also recognize that digital platforms are the first touch point for information, shopping, and entertainment. Whenever we want to know something, or whenever we want to buy a specific product or service, or find a specific piece of entertainment or platform that can entertain us, usually we will look at digital platforms first. Last but not least, we see that consumers are increasingly expecting personalized and authentic experiences. And this is something that also applies to digital marketing. You may be thinking, well, but personalized and authentic experiences can also happen offline. So why are we pointing this out when speaking about digital marketing? This is exactly when we go back to the previous point where we mentioned that digital platforms are becoming the first touch point. When we acknowledge this, we can easily understand the relevance of bringing personalized and authentic experiences to the digital space. Now, you may be able to see, or you may have noticed, that I intentionally left the part of AI enhanced experiences, and there is a reason for this. This is because even though AI is dominating and taking over many industries, including marketing, the AI reception is still under 50%. And what this means is that while we can expect AI to gain more and more popularity throughout the upcoming years, it is also safe to say that as of today, there are many consumers that might not necessarily desire AI enhanced experiences. So it is at this moment not possible to generalize such a statement, but it is important to recognize that even though we cannot generalize it, there might be and there are for sure customers in today's world that are expecting an AI enhanced experience and that have a preference for that. So when we ask ourselves, what is the current state of digital marketing today? It is important to look at key digital marketing platforms. So where exactly is digital marketing happening? For starters, we will have search engines such as Google and Bing. Then we will also have social media platforms with search engine capabilities. Examples of these are YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, X, Pinterest, and Substack. We also have social media platforms like Snapchat and online messaging platforms like Telegram and WhatsApp. We also have email marketing platforms like HubSpot and MailChimp, and content management systems such as WordPress and Wix. In addition to that, we also have e-commerce platforms like Shopify and WooCommerce, as well as analytic platforms like Matomo and Google Analytics. So in the previous slide, we had an idea of where is digital marketing happening, what are the places, what are the platforms. But no matter what is the place or what is the platform, it is important to understand what is exactly what we are putting in those platforms. So in this slide, we're going to be recognizing some of the key digital marketing elements that we can expect to see in these platforms. And when we talk about digital marketing elements, we will see static elements, moving elements, audio elements, and within static elements, we will have pictures, illustrations, and text. Within moving elements, we will have videos, animations, and within audio elements, we will, for example, have sound effects, music, and voice. We also have graphic compositions. We can also have video compositions, and we can also have audio compositions. Basically, when we are talking about a composition, what it means is that it is a combination of different elements. For example, a graphic composition would be composed of text, illustrations, and pictures. If you put all these three together, you would actually be talking about a graphic composition. When you are talking about moving elements such as videos and animations, and you put these together, you would actually be talking about a video composition. If you are working with audio elements, you could have, for example, a sound effect, music, and some voiceovers. And when you put all these together, you would be actually talking about an audio composition. This can be actually done on their own sections, so moving elements, audio elements, and static elements. But you can also find situations in which you will use all of these elements or only some of these elements, and when you combine static elements, moving elements, and audio elements, you will be talking about what we refer to multimedia compositions. Up to this point, we have been able to explore the where and what of digital marketing. But it is time for the how question. So, how do you, as a digital marketer, decide in which platforms to be visible? How do you, as a digital marketer, decide what type of content to create? And how do you, as a digital marketer, decide how to create that content? In order to answer these different questions, we will be looking at two different elements. First, we will be looking at the company, either your company or the company where you're working, and ask ourselves, well, what kind of business model are we having in this specific company? What are their values? What are their marketing goals? What's their product or service that they are offering? And after that, we will also look at the trends. The trends are basically going to be telling you what are consumers preferring, where are consumers hanging out, where are the marketing activities going towards in the future. Trends actually don't just happen from one day to another. Trends are something that keeps growing throughout time. And trends are actually going to be the second topic in which we are going to be focusing in this first module. However, before we jump into trends, it is important to understand that when you are working as a digital marketer in a company and you are asking yourself, how am I going to create this content? How am I going to decide where to be? It will be extremely important for you to look at the trends in order to be aware of what's popping, what's coming up next, where are consumers going. However, it would be extremely wrong to just take whatever the trends are saying and just apply it directly to your business or to your company. Here, what it will be important to do is that you have clarity on your business model, on your business priorities, on your marketing priorities, on your company's values, so that whenever you are aware of the trends, you can exclusively take those trends to your company that actually support the direction in which the company is going. And in the same way, once you know what kind of marketing goals your company is having, you can use that information and then enhance it with the information that you get from the trends. So this is like a cycle in which it's extremely important for a digital marketer to develop their critical thinking in order to evaluate what trends make sense to push from the trends to the company, and also to identify what are the marketing goals from the company, what is their business model, and how can those be enhanced by the trends that are coming up. Now, this is going to make more sense as we dive into the next section, which is going to be all about trends. So what is a trend? A trend is the general direction in which something is developing or changing. It can also refer to a gradual change over time, or it can also refer to a sudden and dramatic change. It's going to be not so frequent that trends just occur from one day to another. What's more typical is that a trend is just something, it's a general direction in which something develops or changes over time. Usually it refers to this gradual change over time. However, as we have been able to see, for example, when ChatGPT was launched, sometimes there's a new launch, a new element, a new party that comes up in a specific industry that all of a sudden changes the entire game. And those cases exist. They are not super common. They do not happen every day, but they can occur. And that also means that the trend can also refer to something that happens suddenly or something that comes out of nowhere and actually does create a dramatic change. Now, whether a trend is here to stay or it's just something that comes momentarily and goes, it's something that is evaluated over time. Now that we know what is a trend, it's also important to understand why are trends important. So first of all, trends are important to stay relevant. Then trends are also important to be seen as a leader. Sometimes companies can be a little bit skeptical about whether a trend is here to stay or whether a trend is here just for a moment. And as I was mentioning in the previous slide, this is the moment in which you really have to develop and exercise your critical thinking. And you have to really consider what kind of company you want to be. What is your company going to be known for? Because sometimes companies that actually are courageous and that they want to try like new things, they simply just jump into the trends. And if the trend was here to stay, they actually start being seen as leaders, as those fearless companies that decided to jump into something and lead the way. However, it's also true that jumping into a specific trend when it's first coming up, it can be scary, and it also brings its own risks. So here it's about exercising your critical thinking and be able to evaluate to what extent can the company in which you are working or your own company that you own, to what extent can this company take certain risks to be seen as a leader, and to what extent maybe it would make more sense to wait. And again, as we saw it in the previous slide, it's all about really being aware about what are these trends, and then also going back to the core of your business. What are their values? What are their goals? What do they want to achieve? What are their products or services? Now, as a third reason of why are trends important, of course, it's to improve your business. Trends are here because, as its name suggests, they are trendy. They are actually like followed by the masses. So this also brings specific benefits that can ultimately improve your business. And as I will repeat over and over again, it's all about critical thinking. It is definitely a reason that explains why trends are important. However, it's not possible to say that every single trend will improve your business. It has the chance, a high chance to improve your business, but it's also not a guarantee. So critical thinking here. Trends are also important because they help you connect with your audience. As I have already mentioned, trends actually pinpoint where the masses are going, where things are developing, in which direction things are developing. So of course, it also allows you to remain connected with your audience as these masses, including your audience, start moving into a specific direction. And it also allows you to take better decisions. And again, and again, and again, this goes back to pinpointing the power of trends, but at the same time, the importance of your critical thinking. Ultimately, we can say that trends are present everywhere. And trends really do reflect developments and people's reactions to them. One example that I can mention already at this point, but that it will become a recurring theme as we move forward in this presentation, it's AI. AI appeared not too many years ago as something new, especially generative AI. Throughout the years, we have seen how the AI trend reflects the developments that AI has had. But at the same time, we have been seeing what are the people's reactions to the trend. So first, it can come with a little bit of cautious behavior and question marks and inquiries. And then with the time, this can actually be transformed into having a bigger degree of acceptance. As said, ultimately, trends will reflect the developments that are occurring, and then they will also reflect how are people reacting to them. Now that you know what is a trend and why trends are important, you may be questioning, well, what's the relevance of trends for me as a marketer? Let's take the same reasons that we looked at before, but apply them to the brain of a marketer. So let's start with staying relevant. As a marketer, how will you stay relevant? In this specific scenario, trends will help you to question how will your planned activities or operations change during these trends. So you will be able to look at your marketing activities and question, okay, this is how I do things now. This is what the trends are telling me. What exactly do I want to do differently? The second part was all about to be seen as a leader. As a marketer, you are going to question, how can your persona take advantage of the fact that you know these trends? So again, as a marketer, you will need to make that decision. You know those trends, and so how can you use those to your advantage? And do you want to use those to your advantage and the advantage of the company? And to what extent? In which format? Do you want to take those risks in order to be seen as a leader, or do you rather be a little bit more cautious and wait, even if that would cost you to not necessarily be seen as a leader? Those are some of the things that you might need to ponder. Then the third part was all about to improve your business. And as a marketer, you will ask yourself, how will I leverage these trends on the marketing activities of my company? Again, it's not about implementing every single thing that the trends are sharing or telling you that this or that it's what's going to be coming next, but it's also about you and the understanding that you have about your business and about the trends and about what would be the best possible combination in order to get the best possible results. Another reason we had was to connect with your audience. And as a marketer, you can ask yourself, how will I use these trends to better communicate with my audience? Some trends will actually tell you, use these formats, or this is the platform that's coming next, or these are some of the characteristics or things that you might want to consider. However, some trends might actually pinpoint ways in which you can communicate with your audience, and you can actually take a look at these specific aspects and think, okay, well, how can I use these trends to have or to improve the communication that you currently have with your audience? And last but not least, we have to take better decisions. As a marketer, you will ask yourself, what will remain as it is and what needs to be changed or improved in order to stay relevant considering these trends? And again, answering to this question will require from you to have a deep knowledge on your business and a deep knowledge on the trends that are coming. Let's look at the major shifts in digital marketing over the past 15 years. So in 2010, it's, I would say, when everything started. In 2010 was really when we could truly see this rise of social media marketing. And after that, something that came up was content marketing that started to become really, really popular. And even though it seems that, or at least to me, sometimes it feels like digital marketing has been here forever, it really has not been that forever. It has been for the last 15 years. And even though the first social media platforms came even earlier than in 2010, it again, as a trend, it took its own time before it started to become something massive and something that we realized that, oh my God, these are actually platforms that are here to stay and that will actually be changing and have changed the way in which we live our everyday lives, the way in which we look for entertainment, the way in which we look for information, the way in which we connect with people. So after content marketing, then we started to see all this development in mobile technology, and we started seeing the appearance of a mobile-first approach. Following that, we had video marketing. Later, we also had data-driven marketing. And closer to 2020, we started to see the race, the very, very, very big race of influencer marketing. And again, now it might feel that, okay, well, influencer marketing has been here since forever. But actually, influencer marketing, as it pertains to social media, it's not like it has been here forever. And so it's something that it's important to recognize of how something might have started at some point in time, and with the years it has started and continued to gain force and force and force over the years. We can also see AI and automation coming up, then voice search and smart speakers, and last but not least, privacy and data protection. In the previous slide, I talked about some of the major shifts in digital marketing in the last 15 years. However, in the last 5 years, there has been so many more developments and shifts that deeply have impacted and will continue to impact digital marketing. So let's have an even closer look to those. So first we have generative AI. And whenever we talk about generative AI, we can refer to content creation, to the way that we are searching on the internet, and to the way that we can see analytics. After generative AI, we can see the growth of social commerce, and we can see social commerce, for example, in TikTok Shop or in Instagram shopping, in in-app purchases, and things like that. Examples like that, that's what I meant. After that, we could see that platform search started to shift. So for example, before, whenever we were looking for a specific information, we would most of the times just focus on Google. We would go to Google, we would go to Yahoo, we would go to Bing, and we would look for the information that interests us. However, now we can see that there has been a platform search shift. And what that means is that we are not relying anymore on search engines to find the answers to our questions. Now we have shifted to social media to also work as a search engine. So many times we don't go anymore necessarily to just Google or just Bing or Yahoo to find the answers to the questions that we're having. More often than not, we find ourselves just looking for a TikTok that can give us the answer to the question that we have, or looking in YouTube, or looking on Instagram, which are social media platforms that have search engine capabilities. Another major shift that it's important to pinpoint is verification systems. And with that, we can actually highlight, for example, the rise of Meta Verified or the opportunity for verification in LinkedIn. And later on, we can also highlight the declining in organic search. And what this means is that we have also been able to see that little by little, there's starting to be a stronger reliance on paid ads. And the reason for this is that before, people used to be very cautious about paid advertising. They didn't want to just be annoyed by getting advertisements that were not relevant to them. However, as paid advertising has evolved over time, people have actually been able to see the positive sides of paid advertising. Sometimes, and I believe that maybe you can relate to this example, you can, or you probably have heard of situations where you have your phone next to you or your computer next to you, and then it almost feels like your phone or your computer are listening to your conversations, because you are all of a sudden discussing a specific topic with yourself or with a group of friends, and then you start getting a specific type of ads. And to your surprise, these ads are actually beneficial to you. It doesn't have to always be in a way that your computer or your phone are listening to your conversations. This can also work based on the history of what you have been browsing for in the web. But a lot of people have actually found that the paid advertisements that they are getting, they're actually valuable. And I don't know if you have noticed, but for example, when you get a paid ad, let's say in Facebook or LinkedIn, if you click on the three dots, you are actually able to also give the social media platforms feedback. You can tell them, yes, show me more about these ads, show me more this type of advertisements, or you can actually say like, hey, no, Like, this is not relevant for me. This is not an ad that I want to see. And social media platforms are starting to also gather this feedback so that social media platforms are able to present to you better paid ads. And that's basically like the background story of why we have also been seeing that there's a stronger reliance on paid ads, while at the same time we have been seeing a declining in organic search, which is not just influenced by the increased reliance on paid ads, but it's also dependent on other factors like the continuous development of AI, but this is something that I will introduce a little bit later on in the presentation. Last but not least, I want to highlight AI video. And when we talk about AI video, we can actually think about tools like OpenAI Sora, Runway, or MetaEmu. Digital marketing platforms have transformed throughout the years. And now we will have a look at the history of the platforms that are relevant to digital marketing and how these have evolved over time. What I want you to pay attention to as we navigate this section is to see how new features that once emerged in one platform became also well received by users, and then this in turn enabled such features to become a trend within social media platforms. We will be able to see how, when this happened, other platforms were very likely to adapt similar features, and we will be able to see multiple examples of it. So let's just get started. So let's start by understanding the timeline that I have built for you here. It starts with 03, which stands for 2003, and goes all the way to 23, which stands for 2023. So here we can see the order in which social media platforms were launched, starting with LinkedIn in 2003, Facebook in 2004, YouTube in 2005, Twitter, which is now known as X, and Spotify in 2006, Pinterest and WhatsApp in 2009, Instagram in 2010, Snapchat and Twitch in 2011, TikTok in 2016, and last but not least, Threads in 2023. Before we dive into how specific features of one platform were integrated to other platforms, I want to highlight two important acquisitions that occurred, and those were the acquisition of Instagram by Facebook in 2012 and the acquisition of WhatsApp also by Facebook in 2014. Now, let's start looking at the different features, starting with Stories. Stories were a feature originally launched by Snapchat in 2013. And while it took 3 years, we saw that in 2016, Instagram launched a similar feature, so basically Instagram Stories. 1 year after that, in 2017, WhatsApp and Facebook also launched their own Stories feature. And in 2022, TikTok also had the same Stories feature available. When it comes to live stream features, this was originally native to Twitch, which is known as a platform for live streaming. On the same year that Twitch was launched, YouTube, which was known as the video-first platform, also launched the YouTube Live feature to compete with Twitch. Other platforms follow. For example, in 2015, live streams became available in Facebook, in 2016 in Instagram, and in 2019 in LinkedIn and TikTok. Let's continue exploring how these also apply to other features. For example, when it comes to short and long format video, the platform known for long format video had been YouTube, while TikTok was known for its short format video content. In 2020, YouTube decided to launch their own version of short format video with YouTube Shorts, and on the same year, Instagram did the same with Instagram Reels. Later, in 2021, Spotify made it possible for people to include not just their podcast, but also their video podcast on the platform, bringing also video as part of their offerings. Last but not least, we could see that TikTok, which was long known by its short format video content, decided to also answer back, making it possible for users to upload up to 10-minute videos to the platform. For a long time, the only text platform was exclusive to Twitter. And as an answer, in 2023, Meta decided to launch Threads, which basically was their own version of Twitter. We can see a similar trend with other features, so let's keep exploring how these were developed over the years. Let's take monetization of social media platforms as an example. This was started in 2007 by Facebook and YouTube. It was followed in 2010 by Twitter, in 2013 by LinkedIn, and in 2015 by Instagram. Now, if we look at more recent features such as Verified ID, we can see that Verified ID was first launched by Facebook in 2022, and only 1 year later, in 2023, this was also a feature offered by Instagram and LinkedIn. So at this point, I think that you already got the drill as to how one feature appears in one platform, and when this feature is well received by the users, other platforms are quick integrating such feature to their own offerings. As a last example, I want to show you business profiles. So business profiles were originally intended for LinkedIn. However, we can see that in 2007, business profiles were already available in Facebook, in 2012 in Twitter, in 2013 in Pinterest, in 2014 in Instagram, in 2018 in WhatsApp, and in 2021 in TikTok. Now, let's have a look at the trends in digital marketing for 2025. In this section, we are going to be looking at different sources that have published their own digital marketing trends for 2025. And we will get started with this article from Forbes titled Digital Marketing Trends for 2025 and Beyond. These are the 6 trends highlighted in this article. The first one is artificial intelligence and machine learning in marketing. The second one is voice search and voice commerce. The third one is the rise of augmented reality and virtual reality. The fourth one refers to the continued dominance of video content, meaning short form and live streaming, and also adapting to new platform offerings in order to encourage interaction. So for example, polls. As a fifth trend, we see the personalization at the scale. And as the last trend that they mentioned in this article, we see social commerce and shoppable content. Now, at this point, I am just going to be enlisting the different trends that are mentioned by different sources. Why am I going to do this? Is because when it comes to trend, it is important to see what different sources are predicting, what different organizations that follow digital trends are finding out. By the end, when we have revised enough sources, you will be able to identify that there are certain trends that are continuously repeated by different sources. Then you might also be able to notice that some sources pay attention to a specific trend while some others don't. The role of a digital marketer is to always keep an eye open to these different trends, to see what different organizations are identifying so that you can start building your own understanding of what is actually coming next. And as I mentioned earlier in this module, as a digital marketer, it's super important that you develop your own critical thinking. In order to do that, it's important to check different sources. So we will continue to go through the same format for a few more sources, and then we are going to wrap it up and see what can we take from all of the sources that we have revised. In another article by Forbes titled The Future of Digital Marketing, Trends to Watch in 2025, the following 7 trends were identified. First, AI-driven personalization beyond the basics. And this refers to having personalized product recommendations and actually having AI enabling entire curated shopping experiences. As a second trend, we have voice search and conversational content. As a third one, they mentioned immersive marketing, so bridging digital and physical spaces. We also hear about privacy and ethical data use, about social commerce being the new frontier, sustainability as a marketing imperative, and preparing for a data-driven future. Now, moving away from the Forbes article, let's revise this article from HubSpot titled 5 New Marketing Trends to Watch in 2025. And the first trend that it's mentioned is focusing on younger customers. The second one is leading with brand. The third one refers to visuals as the expectation. The fourth one to tapping into niche influence. And the fifth one using AI to keep up with content needs. So as we can see, and we will keep revising more sources, this is the third source that mentions AI. However, Forbes mentioned AI to be leveraged for high personalization, high customization. And here in HubSpot, they are mentioning AI to simply be used as a tool to keep up with content needs. When you start revising different sources and start reading how exactly different sources understand and interpret digital marketing trends, it's important that you start making these type of connections to start seeing, okay, well, what different sources are saying and what I can take away from this. For example, in this specific article of HubSpot, they are talking also about focusing on younger customers, which is a trend that we didn't so mentioned in previous articles. And I will actually invite you, here I'm just making the list of the trends that are mentioned in each of the articles. However, you can access that article if you go to the PDF document in Moodle. You can actually just click and there is a link that will take you directly to the original source of the material. And I would highly recommend you to read through the entire article because each trend is opened in a way that you can understand what exactly it's meant by each specific trend that it's mentioned. So for example, in this case that they mentioned focusing on younger customers, one of the points that they are making is that before, companies did really not focus so much on millennials or Gen Z. They really wanted to still convince older generations like the boomers. And something that it's mentioned in this specific article, it's just a recognition that millennials are not anymore just some youngsters, or as they mention it in the article, some interns. They are actually starting to be in their 30s and 40s, and Gen Zs start being in their 20s also. So they're starting to occupy positions of power, positions where they can actually influence the decisions that are made within a company. And so they are encouraging companies to also focus on these younger generations that are starting to be in positions of power. So now let's explore an article from SEMrush titled The 9 Top Marketing Trends to Watch in 2025. And the first one, it's all about AI-powered marketing continues to surge. Again, this is the fourth source that we are revising, and AI is mentioned in all of these sources. The second one, and I find this extremely interesting, it's all about SEO makes way for GEO, which is basically the abbreviation for Generative Engine Optimization. And I really want to take just a little bit of a time here because GEO is something that we are going to be diving a little bit deeper as we progress with the course. But before, when marketers used to focus on their organic strategies, SEO was the king. So you would really, companies would hire even specialist positions to work exclusively on SEO. Understanding SEO was extremely important to the point that, as I just mentioned, companies would be willing to hire people that were exclusively specialized in SEO. However, with the rise of AI and how AI can be utilized in very many different ways in different platforms, we have seen that it has made way for something that in this article they refer to GEO, which is Generative Engine Optimization. And maybe you have already seen some examples of this in action, because before, and as we have seen previously, you would just go to the Google search bar and maybe add certain keywords. And then based on those keywords, the idea was that Google would show you the pages that were most relevant for the query that you were putting. Now, GEO is coming to challenge this part with AI. And maybe you have already seen this, as I just mentioned, that you will go ahead and write a full question in Google. And instead of you going into different pages to try to find the answer or to actually just find the answer, users are now able to get instant answers from AI tools like Google AI Overviews. And Google AI Overviews basically take information from different websites that have optimized their content to be readable by AI. And so many times, and you can also voice your opinion, for example, when working in your learning diary, how you have experienced this specific trend. When you go to Google and you put a specific search query, do you still go to a specific website, or how have you noticed that your attention has shifted now that Google is providing the Google AI overviews? That would be something very interesting to explore. But let's continue. As a third trend here, they mention cookies are being replaced by privacy-first marketing. As the fourth one, they still refer to short format video continues to dominate. So even though we are diving into AI and generative engine optimization, short format video content still continues to dominate, and we have seen that this has already been mentioned in quite a few sources, so video is not going away. The fifth trend that it's mentioned here are marketers are turning to micro-influencers. The sixth one being that marketers are capitalizing on user-generated content. The seventh one being that marketers are using AI to personalize at scale, so again, AI. And the eighth one being that marketers are investing heavily in building communities. And the ninth one referring to quality content and thought leadership still matter. And when it comes to thought leadership, here's the part where when you start thinking about your content strategies, and again, this is like a very relevant topic for this course, it is almost like not enough anymore to have your business company page on social media. Like, yes, that it's an essential, that it's something like, as I just mentioned, it's essential to have it. However, it's usually not enough. So cultivating thought leadership has mattered and will continue to matter, because people don't want to hear the messages just from the company. They want to hear the messages from the company, but they also want to hear the individuals behind the company. Like, what are they actually really thinking about it? What are their messaging? So this is something that we will continue to explore as we move forward in this course. The last article that we are going to revise is from Gartner, and it's titled The Future of Marketing: 6 Trends and Predictions for 2025. The first one refers to CMOs, and in case you do not know what a CMO abbreviation stands for, it stands for Chief Marketing Officer. So this article mentions the trends as from the perspective of what Chief Marketing Officers, so CMOs, would actually perceive and do. So the first one, it's about how CMOs will build AI experimentation into their mobile app roadmap. And again, we can see how AI is brought time and time again, but with different angles. And this is something so important. So in this specific article, they mention AI, but for example, as an integration to mobile apps. The second trend mentioned here says that CMOs will invest in talent and content to adapt for Gen AI powered search. This is very linked to the point that the previous article was mentioned, that before all the attention was in SEO. And while SEO is still relevant, we find ourselves at a moment when a shift is starting to occur, and us ignoring the power of AI and how AI is coming to change the world, it's really not anymore a possibility. So in this second trend, what this article is highlighting is how CMOs are recognizing that how AI is coming to change this, and they definitely will need to shift their attention to start hiring for talent who have the skills to work with this Gen AI powered search and to start shifting their content. So the goal now, it's not just to focus on SEO and how can websites have a specific information that will make them able to rank on search, but also how can websites have this specific type of content structure that would allow, for example, Google AI to read their content, understand their content, and maybe even possibly use their content as a base for the answers that they provide when a specific search query is done. Now, the third trend mentioned here is how CMOs will shift 30% of their budget to subscription-based social platforms. And the fourth one, it's all about CMOs will build brand trust by embracing uniform pricing. The fifth trend mentioned in this article mentions how CMOs will increase offline investment to support new content consumption platforms. And the sixth one finally states how SMOs will prepare data for automated interactions led by AI agents. So this is actually the last article that I am including in this lecture, but I hope that by this point you are able to see how every article brings similar features, but also brings different angles. And as I already mentioned, the point for a digital marketer is to be aware of what is out there so that you can always keep on top of your game and in top of your knowledge of what is actually happening in the digital marketing space. And why am I saying this? And actually, before we shift into the last part of this module, I want to really highlight the importance of every single year keeping up with trends. There is a reason why when I taught this course back in 2024, the trends were different. The content was different. And I feel that with all this development of new technologies, things keep developing in many different fields, including marketing, at an incredible speed. I found myself in a really funny situation last year when I was teaching something about AI. I believe I was teaching something around Google's AI that at the time I believe it was called Brad. And then I started teaching with that knowledge in mind. And we were like midway into the course where actually Brad transformed into Gemini. Or Gemini. I don't know how you pronounce Google's AI or what's the right pronunciation for it. I also found myself also teaching a course in Canva that at the beginning of the course, Canva had specific features, and midway in the course, Canva decided to launch their new version of Canva, and there were new certifications, new content just out there. So why am I mentioning all these examples? I am mentioning all these examples because things will keep to develop fast. And if you want to work in marketing, what is really important for you is to be aware that what I am teaching you today is what is happening today. However, it would be not so good for you to walk out of this course and have an idea that, okay, well, now I know everything that there is to know about digital marketing, and now I have the latest knowledge, and that's it. No. It might be that if you explore digital marketing again at the end of the year, AI has brought already new developments and that things have changed. If you are, for example, in your first year of studies and then you aim to get a career or a job in digital marketing it's an area that really challenges you to keep up with all the changes that are happening. So all this just to say, it's important to always be keeping an eye open for new information, for new trends, for new tools, for new evolution, because now more than ever, I believe that we are in constant transformation, in constant evolution, and different from other periods of life where maybe evolution used to take longer and changes used to occur in a slower manner. Now changes are happening fast. So it is extremely important that you as a digital marketing stay with this sharp mind and like that you actually commit to maintaining your skills really, really sharp so that you can keep up with all of these developments. So if something were to change as I am teaching this course, don't worry, make sure that I am going to like bring it up and mention, but constant evolution. Please don't forget that. To finalize Model 1, let's talk about leveraging trends. So how exactly are businesses leveraging these trends? To begin with, let's mention video content as a must-have and content creation related activities as part of the normal work. Now, I chose to put these two together because before, a business could simply get away with their marketing activities relying primarily in their static content or in their photography, in their pictures. Nowadays, it's going to be really rare that a business can be successful, digitally speaking, if they just want to rely on graphic content and pictures. Video content is becoming a must-have and business need to deliver. What this has also meant in practice is that the content creation activity is not anymore just part of the marketing team. And this is simply because there are certain messages, there are certain content that it shouldn't be actually even coming from the marketer themselves. So a marketer should have definitely the skills to be able to present in camera, to speak, to edit the video, to take the pictures, to take the videos, to think about the strategies, to think about the creative, to think about what's the entire plan. But certain pieces of content, they require people that are working in different roles. And so how I have been seeing this in different businesses is that now people in different professions have started to understand that it doesn't matter whether they specialize in accounting, logistics, finance, whether they are a dentist, an engineer, a waitress, a coffee worker, like a worker in a coffee shop, like they will, besides that profession that they have, they will also be expected sooner or later to be part of the marketing activities of a company. So now when we think about marketing, and even yourself, when you are going through this course and you are discovering all these different aspects of marketing, maybe you decide that, okay, well, I love marketing and I 100% want to pursue a career in marketing. However, that might also not be the case. You might end up this course and discover that marketing is something that you wouldn't want to pursue in the future as a career. However, it is important for you to understand that even if you choose not to pursue marketing as a career in the future, it will be very likely that your contribution to a company's or a business's marketing activities will be required at some point in the future. Moving on to the next part. The next part is all about restructuring of websites. And as I mentioned, it is still like SEO is still relevant today. There are certain aspects that are simply foundational. You do not want to have a website that it's fully not optimized for SEO. SEO is still relevant, but as you make sure that your digital assets, your owned media, is structured in a way to be successful today, you also want to start taking the actions to future-proof your digital assets. And in this case, I'm talking about optimizing your content, optimizing your website for AI readability. This is something that we already observed as we were exploring the different trends and that we will keep looking at in future models. But basically something that businesses are starting to do nowadays is that they are starting to evaluate what are their digital assets. So for example, their website or social media platforms, and they are starting to look at these digital assets from the perspective of how can I make sure that this is also optimized for AI readability. As a next point, we also have the authenticity of contents being prioritized, because even though AI has come into our lives to make things faster, to give new perspectives, to increase customization and personalization, authenticity has also become extremely important. And that's why it's also very relevant for future marketers to learn how to leverage AI in the right way. When this is not the case, When you just think that you go to ChatGPT, you go to Gemini, you go to Canva, and you ask in different platforms that, okay, develop this text for me, or develop this strategy for me, or develop this plan for me, and you literally copy paste exactly what it's done, and there's no input from your side, there's no critical thinking, there's no creative thinking, the result is going to be very poor. So it is important to start learning how to work with AI to enhance our work as marketers. But also it is important to remember that our job here, like AI came to make our lives faster so that we can actually focus on making our work authentic, on making these contents that we produce authentic, while also having the opportunity to make them faster. So this is another thing that is worth pointing out. The next one, it's all about AI specialized position. And we already discussed this, but what I have been able to see is how, and I would also encourage you to look at that, for example, looking at job postings or at LinkedIn job marketplace, how there are starting to be different and several companies that are exclusively recruiting for marketing teams specialized in AI, or in other words, positions where they actually want to hire talent that is deeply immersed in AI and has those skills. In a similar manner, this doesn't apply exclusively to marketing teams, but think about marketing agencies. There are marketing agencies that they also want to be sure that they can serve their clients well with the new trends that are coming. So there has been also marketing agencies and companies that have been looking for specialized professionals in AI to bring them into board of directors positions so that they can guide the development of the company when it comes to the AI activities. We also see that there is the encouragement of employee activity in social media, and this is tightly linked to thought leadership, in which basically, even though we have video content, even though we have AI supporting us, we also need to have the personal brands. And now something that it's very common, it's to see companies not just relying in their own social media presence, but actually also encouraging their own employees to have active social profiles. Mostly I have seen in LinkedIn, but that can vary depending on the company, and encourage them to also be active there so that the company doesn't have to depend exclusively in company content, but that it has all their people to support that visibility. And this is simply because when it comes to the reputation of a company, it's always better when you have other people other than the company also give a perspective into what is going on. You want to know the people behind the company and not just the company itself. And last but not least, we have here the GDPR compliant analytics, and everything that has to do with privacy has become more trendy and trendy and trendy over the years. And there are different acts. For example, here in Europe, we have the GDPR policy. And when it comes to marketing activities, it actually turns out that when we use Google Analytics, if you use them in a way that they respect GDPR policies, you actually very much will be in a position that you can lose a lot about the analytics that you're gathering. And don't worry if this is a little bit confusing at this point. We're going to dive deeper into analytics as the models progress. But basically, when businesses want to be GDPR compliant, they need to put this very typical cookie banner that you very likely have seen in different websites. Now, the thing is that when a user does not answer to the cookie banner, or when the user actually declines the cookies, then there is no opportunity for the business to actually know how much traffic it's getting, how their users are behaving in their website or in their platforms. And this has created a very big challenge for their analytics. However, because of this current situation with GDPR and privacy policies, new companies have developed new ways to follow your analytics in a GDPR compliant way. And one of the companies that it's doing that, it's called Matomo. And I wanted to mention it here because before we would see businesses just in a very difficult position because on the one hand, they wanted to be GDPR compliant. But on the other hand, the moment they became GDPR compliant, they lost complete access to their analytics or dramatically access to their analytics. Why did it happen? This happens because before all the traffic was tracked. Like you would get all the analytics. However, nowadays with GDPR, you don't get all the clean analytics because there's people that they just don't want to give permission for that to be tracked. And in consideration of this current situation, there has been the need for alternatives in which data is still collected in a way that it still respects GDPR policies. And one example of companies doing this is, for example, Matomo. Anyway, this was the last point of this slide, and with this, we are going to be concluding Model 1. I hope you have enjoyed this introduction to digital marketing and the digital marketing trends that are relevant in 2025. I will see you in Model 2.